Welcome to the Unlocking Senior Resources podcast by Leave the Key. I'm Larry Wagner, and I've spent 30 years working with seniors, where I was a certified senior advisor, and the last 15 years in the home buying industry as a certified senior transition specialist, where I specialize in dealing with seniors going through a transition in their lives. This podcast is for seniors, those with seniors they love, and people who work in the senior community. In each episode, we bring on a guest who works to improve the lives of seniors. This podcast is your key to unlocking senior resources. Hello. Today we're here with Beth Weeks, RN, from Senior Living Consultants of New York. Welcome, Beth.
Thank you.
A pleasure meeting you, and I've read about you, I've heard about you, and we've communicated, and just let people know a little bit how you got into the business you're in. Before you do that, just what business are you in so people know?
That's a great question. Well, thanks for having me, Larry. It's very nice to meet you. So our company is Senior Living Consultants of New York. I'm one of the co-founders along with my business partner, Paul Corvino. We are a company that helps individuals figure out if they need senior living, and if so, how to navigate that process.
Right.
Not just here's a community or here's a list of communities, but selecting the right place for them based on a variety of factors, and a lot of in-person involvement,
Right.
and narrowing down and quieting all the noise that's out there.
Okay. Now this is working in the senior community in general requires a certain type of person. So you're that certain type of person. How did you get into this industry?
This is one of my favorite stories to tell. I started out working as a secretary in a medical equipment office.
Okay.
That catered to the senior living industry, and it was a family-owned company, and they had several different divisions, and they liked me, and I liked them, and I liked the business, and so they promoted me to work for their senior living division in the business office, and so I did that for a while and liked that, and they put me in another division, and then I got to work in an actual community in the front office, and that's where I really fell in love with the industry because I had a lot of face time with a lot of seniors.
Right.
And it was not something that I had been exposed to before and never envisioned that I would just make this my whole career.
When did you start there? At what age were you when you
I
started as a secretary?
was, I want to say 20.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I really loved the work, and I decided that I'd like to become an administrator. I worked in North Carolina at the time, and that's what they called assisted living directors, were you had to be a licensed administrator. So my mentor and boss at the time had a rule that if you were going to become an administrator, you had to do every single job in the building, but not just check a box that you
Right.
shadowed somebody and
Right.
pencil whipped a form. So he said, "You're going to CNA school, which is certified nursing assistant." And I said, "I'm doing what now?" Okay, I'll do that. But I was worried because even though I'm a caring person and I loved working with seniors, I thought that doing hands-on care, that I wouldn't have what it took
Right.
to do that with dignity and respect for the person I was caring for. But I will never forget, I did hands-on care for the first time in a nursing home as a CNA student with a gentleman named Tommy. And I said, "Tommy, we're going to get through this." And he said, "Okay." And I told him I was new, and he was okay with that. And I had my supervisor there. And but I went home that night, and I told my family that I wanted to become an RN, and I wanted to become a nurse administrator.
There you go.
And I thought that people who run buildings in the capacity of an administration should would benefit from having a clinical background.
And I have a lot of respect for your boss for that
Me
attitude.
too. I'm very grateful.
Yes.
And he was a wonderful, wonderful mentor and taught me a lot. And really, that's where I developed this passion for working with this population. And I never
Right.
looked back, 25 years later.
Right.
So I worked in various capacities of senior living, including being a nursing director and an executive director. And my last role in New York City, that's where I met my business partner, Paul. He was the sales director. We became good friends. And towards the end of our time working there, we were seeing a lot of companies who were allegedly doing placement
Right.
and helping seniors with this process, but we weren't seeing a lot of helping happening.
Okay.
We were getting a lot of emails and phone numbers
Right.
and call this person, they're perfect for you. And when in fact there was no discovery or insight into this, or thought into sending this lead to us. So Paul and I talked about it and decided to start our company focusing on the placement aspect of really digging into what makes a human tick, following a holistic method, and looking at somebody in a biopsychosocial spiritual way.
Biopsychosocial
Social, spiritual.
spiritual way.
Yes.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. A nursing instructor taught me that phrase, and it really resonated with me because a lot of people can give care. They
Right.
can give someone a shower, or they can help you shave. But does that person understand your cultural background? Does the community understand your situation of where you've come from, the kind of people you want to be around, what's important to you, what you did professionally, who you are as a human, and what you want to see when you look out your window? All those things.
Right.
And then you look at budget and geography. And
Right.
so we wanted to approach it in that very holistic way.
It's funny. You used the word human 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And when we were speaking before we turned the cameras on, I mentioned it's a very human business, and you agreed.
Absolutely.
But that's a word that is in your vernacular normally, not just because I said it 10 minutes ago,
Yeah.
which is very interesting. And it really is. It's such a touchy-feely, hands-on, get to know, better yet, get to understand your client. Getting to know them is one thing. Understanding them is another. And that's where you talk about the cultural difference and so on. You may know someone has a certain cultural background, but understanding is a whole nother level. And that's what's important to you.
It is. Thank you for saying that. I agree. And I think as we become a more technologically advanced society, it's even more important to focus on the human element of what it takes to really help someone and what the term advocacy really means.
And the technology tends to pull us away from the human touch in this business.
Yeah.
And you could just put into Google, give me the list of the closest nursing homes, but nursing home may not be appropriate for you.
Exactly.
But people put you there anyway, like the kids. So
maybe if you're not very nice to your kids.
if you're not very nice, So that's fascinating. So you've built this company, and you've kept it a small company where you and Paul are very hands-on with the size of the company, and that's critical. So are one of you in touch with each and every person that crosses your door, so to speak?
Almost. So for the first 5 years, it was just Paul and me,
Right.
Covering our fairly large territory, all of New York City, Westchester, Fairfield County, and all of Long Island. And it's very important for us to be in person and present and to respond timely to our clients and their requests. So we did add a couple of team members over the past year and a half, one of whom just left us, but for another opportunity. We're so happy for her, but we miss her terribly. But we do have a lovely woman working with us who's a longtime friend and colleague who actually was the social worker when we all worked in senior living together. And so now 10 plus years later, we're all back together again.
Right.
So she really is helping us with Westchester and Fairfield County. And she's sort of helping with Long Island now that we're, the three of us are covering that together. But yeah, Paul and I pretty much are involved with every single person, if not directly, then through our very robust weekly meetings that we have with Enza and Westchester to talk about the caseload.
Right. Very interesting. So how does somebody find you is the first question. You're not the only one doing this. So somebody selecting you, how are they differentiating you without knowing you?
I am very proud to say that over 90% of our business is personal referral based.
Wow.
Word of mouth. We do no advertising, unless you count this as advertising. This is my third podcast ever, so we don't do any SEO on the internet. We do have a website, but we're not driving people to it. We don't pay for website leads through any company. We're very boots on the ground. We live where we work. We work where we live, and we are. It's very important to us to be in these communities and in places where our clients live and want to live. So most of our referrals come from other people that know about us because we helped someone they knew, or they found us through talking to their elder law attorney, or through their therapist or their primary care physician. We do have a certain amount of clinical-based referral business, especially as an RN. We do attract clients who have some pretty significant complex medical needs. So we have good relationships with a lot of the short-term rehab facilities as well.
Oh, that's very good. That's very good. 'Cause I know from my family, my in-laws live in independent living. but my mother-in-law went from a hospital, had to go to rehab before she went back home to her independent living. And rehabs were referred by the hospitals. So they're referring you as a source to find the best place to go for these people.
Yes, and we've proven to them over time
Right.
that we are efficient but caring, and
Right.
we are in person. We show up and we meet our clients in person.
Right.
Especially if it's a complex case, I like to be the one that meets with them so
Right.
that I, from a nursing point of view,
Correct.
can evaluate what their needs are, and to be honest with them that maybe senior living is not the right path for you, and we shouldn't force this issue. Here are some alternatives that might suit you better for the long term, because we don't believe in, move here for now,
Right.
unless that's actually your plan.
Right. So what's your definition of senior living?
So senior living encompasses assisted living,
Okay.
independent living, and memory care.
Yeah.
There is another sort of branch, the retirement community, the continuing care
Yeah.
retirement community, which is the buy-in model.
Right.
But we don't really work with those types of models because the folks they're attracting are younger and moving
Right.
into the independent living side,
Right.
and they don't really need us for that.
But you were saying, so you don't count those, which I understand, because they're attracting the young, the 65-year-olds and so on, who are in good shape now and just planning for the possibility. You're dealing with people already in the day and now and here and now. So in addition to the nursing homes and assisted livings and so on, what alternatives do people have?
So the sort of standbys are home with home care.
Right.
And if we really look at somebody and we're talking to them and that's their strong desire, and it's most people's desire
Yes.
to stay home, and we support that. I know it's going to be my desire.
Right.
I'm going to be a nightmare to my daughter one day when I need help.
Yeah.
So we believe in people staying home. We're
Right.
not selling senior living. We have
Right.
nothing to sell.
Right.
So if that's the right path for that person and they have the funds to support it, their home is safe.
Right.
Their home is adaptable for whatever equipment
Yep.
they need. They have space for the home care person who,
Mhm.
if they need to sleep over or they need two people to be awake, then we give them the resources for home care
Right.
in their area. If that doesn't work and senior living is right, great, we go that route.
Right.
But let's say they truly need a long-term skilled nursing facility.
Right.
That's happening less and less these days because assisted living communities are providing higher and higher levels of care. We're in this renaissance of senior living. It used to be just like one or two
Yep.
companies that offered this really enhanced care.
Yep.
But now a lot of places are offering it and backing it up and doing it well. So people are not requiring nursing care long term like
Right.
they used to.
It's interesting because I tried to convince, I've said this story before on the podcast, not for a while. I tried to convince my parents in their I'll be polite, mid-80s, to move to independent living. And they didn't want to do it. They didn't, because they think, grandma was a nursing home, my mother's mother was a nursing home, and that was the first thought in their head. And second thought is that's the place you go to die. And I explained that this is independent living, not a nursing home. Very different. And number two, it's the place you go and die, not the place you go to die. We're all going to die. It's just a matter of where. And I tried to explain to my mother, who was kind of more emotional than rational. My father was sort of had a good balance. And it took me 6 months to convince my brother and sister to get on board with my wife and me. And we're the ones who live locally. And they finally got on board. And then 6 months to convince my parents. So it was a whole year-long process. And they went. So it was the best thing they ever did. It was the
I'm
best thing
glad
they
to
ever
hear
did.
that.
And we moved them from Nassau County to Suffolk County, and it's so far away, it was 10 minutes away because they lived not far from the border and they moved onto the border. So it wasn't far away. So, and they realized that when I said, when you go now when you're well, they were perfectly fine and clear-headed. This way you'll make friends. And if something happens to you, you still have friends. But if you go there already in bad shape, you're not going to make friends the same way.
Yeah.
And it worked out perfectly. And then my mother, the reason I bring it up, my mother developed Lewy body dementia.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yes, I was sorry to see it. Thank you. And she was that way for 3 years. 3 years. And she was basically, for those who don't know, Lewy body dementia basically made her a vegetable. And she had 24-hour care, lived with the Hoyer lift, had to be fed and massage the food down her throat. And she couldn't do anything, couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't do anything. And people come and visit her every day. Her friends from the place would come and visit her every day. And sometimes she'd be able to smile, not typically, but they loved her and they wanted her because she was such a wonderful person. So my advice is don't wait till it's too late. So that's my advice to people. Come and talk. Don't wait till it's too late. But also, it's a whole new chapter in your life. And people don't look at it that way. They look at it as a compromise. They don't have to be today. These places are beautiful. As you said, they're offering so much more service than
Yeah.
they used to in the past. So that's sort of my commercial for a little bit of what you do.
Well, I appreciate that. And we are very practical and honest
Yeah.
with our clients, and not to be contrarian, but it is
Yes.
still a compromise.
Oh, it is.
It's at the end of the day, nobody really wants to
Right.
move to senior living,
Right.
or certainly not at first, like
Right.
your folks. It took a year.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad they had the luxury at that time to make
Yeah.
the decision and do the research, so that they weren't making the decision based on a crisis.
They did no research. I did the
But
research.
you did. I mean,
Right.
so
The
when I
kids
say
do it.
they,
Right.
I mean,
Yes.
of course, obviously,
Yes.
there's always a
Right.
family advocate
Correct.
or influencer, as we say,
Correct.
who's helping
It
out
was my
and
wife who was the influencer.
doing all the
Yeah.
work. And then so there's the influencer,
Right.
there's the decision maker,
Yeah.
there's the bad guy, there's the good guy.
Yeah.
I'm the bad guy in my family.
Yeah.
I was always the hard news deliverer.
There you go. You need one.
So we recognize that people don't necessarily want to have to make this decision, but sometimes they have to make it.
Right.
So we are honest with them, and it's our job to know each of these communities inside and out as much as you can
Right.
without working there, so that we can give our clients the real education on what to expect. And nothing's going to be like home, and home is the best place for you until it's not, and what makes it
Perfect.
not. And we challenge our clients
Yep.
to answer those
Yes.
questions.
Yeah.
So it is a bit of a compromise, but it can
Right.
really change your life for the better if you don't wait too long. If you wait too
Yes.
long, or someone waits too long, then you're not really enjoying your existing rather than living.
Correct.
And if you have the opportunity to live, then take it.
Yep. But we're saying the same thing without a doubt. And some of these places are so phenomenal. When my parents were home, you can say it's the best place for them because it's where they wanted to be. But they lived in a split-level house with stairs. Split-level houses don't have a bathroom on the main level, so they have to go upstairs. It has the laundry in the basement. Carrying laundry up, kicking it down the stairs was one thing, but carrying it up the stairs, they do it in small bits and pieces. And it's just not conducive to senior living, who people shouldn't be walking around in a place with stairs. And while it was an emotional decision, you're right, I'd have convinced them it wasn't the best place for them any longer. But I did that by saying, instead of saying this place is no good, I said, this place is better. And the reason is my parents are incredibly social. They had 50 couples of friends. Yes, a lot of friends. They were bridge players.
Wow.
My mother had annual friends, semi-annual friends, quarterly friends. She was very organized. And then she had daily friends because she played bridge 7 days a week. And so anyway, they were down to just a few couples of friends. They had all passed away or moved away. And so at that point, they were lonely. I said, let's develop a whole new social circle. Unfortunately, only one other couple played bridge there, but there were activities and stuff to keep them occupied and meet new people. And that to me, that's especially a single person. They were lucky enough to be a couple, but especially a single person going to play, socialization is such an important part of their existence. That's what keeps you alive longer. I'm speaking to an RN. From a non-medical perspective, I'm not an RN, but having human interaction is so important to your existence, and you don't have that at home. You may have a one-on-one aid. It's not the same as dealing with, what's wonderful, but it's not the same as dealing with people who are 90 years old like you.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm a proponent. While being home is great, and I know it took a long time to get them out, their life was so much better where they were. And the reason you'd promote home is because your clients want to be there. Do you think home, if the client was ambivalent, would home be a better choice? Or do you think if they needed some level of care?
That's a really great question. I think you have to look at it really at the individual, because all those things that you were saying about your folks' home, those would be things that I would ask a client to list.
That's part of that long word phrase you had.
Yeah. So I would say, home is where you want to be, but let's explore why that is. Let's explore what you have at home. Let's explore what it takes to get it. Because if, you might have the ability to cook at home, but when's the last time you cooked?
Right.
You might have the ability to host holidays, but when's the last time you hosted a holiday? You might have the ability to host friends and play bridge in your apartment, but when's the last time you did that?
Yeah.
So not trying to point out the negatives, but trying to get them to come with me along the journey when I can clearly see if someone really needs to leave home, but they have to get there. So someone who's ambivalent, I would look at why they're ambivalent.
Right.
In those cases, most often it's because their world has shrunk. The isolation is a big problem for a lot of seniors there, and especially in the metro New York area, there are a lot of very independent, single people who are aging, who don't have children, who don't have spouses, and whose world has really, really shrunk. So looking at what they need in order to have an enriched life and socialization is very much the key. And they're probably ambivalent because that part of their life has gone away.
Right. I like the word use enriched life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's the key. The life can still be enriched. It can be better.
Yeah.
And people, they have to understand that.
But it's hard to convince someone of that when when just like your parents, they have a notion that senior living is the nursing home or the old folks home. Don't ever put me in a home.
Yeah.
Those phrases are said all the time, but things are very different than they were when I first started out, and certainly from when our parents were putting their parents in homes.
Right.
So it's a lot different. So I think this is, I know we're jumping ahead, but one of the things I really want to talk about as a takeaway is the education aspect of this.
Mm-hmm.
Take away the fear.
Right.
Take away the mystery. Like, let's talk about it.
Yes.
You can't be afraid of something that you can see and identify and confront.
Right.
So I think having these conversations earlier, in greater detail, and demystifying this whole process would make people feel a lot better about it.
Hi, I'm Larry.
And I'm Ben. We're the father and son team of Leave the Key Home Buyers, and we want to buy your house.
We specialize in working with seniors who are transitioning out of their homes, and we understand what you are going through.
So if you're considering selling your home and would like an alternative to the traditional overwhelming process, reach out and see how we can help.
Do you have an outdated home?
No need to update anything.
Have a home that needs repairs?
Don't bother with repairs.
Don't want to take everything with you?
Leave whatever you want behind.
Dreading the headaches that come with agents?
Sell your home without paying a commission.
Dreading prying neighbors attending open houses and passing judgment on your home?
No need for public showings.
When you sell to us, you'll have all the certainty of closing on your timeline, not someone else's, and there's absolutely no pressure.
Visit leavethekey.com or call us today for a no-obligation offer at 631-388-7771 if you want to sell your home today. That's very important. That's an excellent concept. You're right. And again, as long as they have to understand what their alternatives are and truly understand.
Yeah.
Not have their own erroneous vision of what their alternatives are. And that was my parents, and that's what you face, I'm sure, constantly.
Yes.
And so the average person you're dealing with now is what kind of age range? I'm sure you have some not old people there who need care, which surprised me the first time. It never occurred to me.
This is a really tough question to answer because the average is so skewed. Because my youngest client is 55, which is very sad and unusual.
Yeah.
And my oldest client is 100 years old.
Wow. Almost
two
double.
two active clients at the same time. Vastly different issues. The 55-year-old has some significant medical, unprecedented issues, and the 100-year-old had a fall, and she just needs some extra help.
Right.
She takes 3 medicines, and 2 of them are over the counter.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so very different creatures, but the average typical age in senior living and what we see is like 84.
I was going to say mid-80s to 90 or something. Right. So, and those people, so their parents would be 110 or whatever today. So 40 years ago, 30 years ago, they were going to nursing homes and so on. It was very different. My grandmother, I just was at the funeral, actually at the cemetery yesterday. So I looked at her. She was born in 1896. Wow. I just happened to look at that because I just went to see my folks and my grandparents. Anyway, so she was 90 when she went into a nursing home. She was 90, so it was 1986. Easy math. 1986 is very different than 2025. And wow, that was a long time ago, 40 years ago.
So, yeah, so 40 years ago was not a good time for these facilities like it is today. And
Yeah. It's and that's why companies,
yeah,
this one company, this large national company founded they started their company a little over 40 years ago and really started changing the landscape of senior living, but there's still not a deep understanding or widespread awareness of what senior living actually is, because
correct.
people still say nursing home when they call me. Um, and also, people don't understand the high levels of care that are available, which is why people like me have jobs, because we can talk about all this. For that reason, as a nurse, I became certified to do what's called a PRI, which is a nursing home screening, a New York-based tool for nursing home evaluation. I've been asked to do them quite often, but when I show up to do the assessment, the person doesn't need a nursing home.
Right,
They need assisted living.
right.
And I'm able to save the family a lot of money, because private nursing home care is much more expensive than private senior living. I'm able to improve that person's social quality of life. Not that all nursing homes are bad. Nursing homes can be really, really great. But it's a medical setting versus a social setting.
It's a different level
It's a different level of care
yeah.
for different needs.
Yep.
So it's really been a nice surprise for a lot of people
Right,
that
right,
I can offer this level of assessment, but
right,
I really don't ever have to do it
right,
because they don't really need the nursing home.
right. That's interesting. Right, because seeing so few people you placed into a nursing home you recommend.
Yeah.
So, very interesting. So with that said, so how people find you, we got it. And then what's the process of working with you look like?
So we always like to start with either an in-person meeting,
Right,
depending on the person's comfort level, Zoom, FaceTime,
right.
WhatsApp, phone call, whatever
Hmm.
their preferred medium is, to learn more about the person we're going to be helping.
Right,
Often that's with an adult child, a niece, a nephew, a friend,
right.
a cousin, a brother, a sister, um, twice a parent of the person who is going
Really?
into senior living, or spouse. So we do a pretty deep intake initial phone call or Zoom meeting, and
Right.
then I really love to assess our clients in person,
Hmm.
and I like to be the one to do the assessment.
Right.
So Paul and Enza send me all over the place, which I
Right.
love. I get to meet lots of interesting people. I do an evaluation to make sure that senior living is right, and then if so, really hone in on which places make the most sense for that person. Not everyone wants an assessment or needs one, but we do offer that. And then the next step, based on all of that, depending on if they're in a clinical setting or a home setting, it kind of varies from here. So if they're in a clinical setting, we're reviewing clinical notes and documentation and speaking with the social worker and the doctors and the speech therapists and all these people. If they're at home, it's more if there's not a medical crisis driving it, most likely. So we're just talking with the person. And then we take whoever wants to on tours of the places that we identify, number one, can meet the person's needs, because safety has to be first. Without safety, nothing else matters. We basically follow Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you don't have safety,
Right.
nothing else can be achieved. So can the place meet the needs? If so, then we look at all the fun stuff.
Hmm.
What do you like to do? Is religion important to you? Do you need to be in a place that is kosher? Or do you need to be in a place that has services on site? Do you need to be in a place that has grass where you can see water or grass outside your window?
That's it. I wouldn't have thought of that one.
Yeah,
Kosher, religious, but
all
grass. That's
sorts. Yeah,
interesting.
people want to see, be in nature. They want to be in city. They don't care what the view is. They just
Right.
want to have a nice apartment. Or maybe it has to be uber fancy, or maybe it has to not be fancy.
Right.
So we look at all those things, and then we make a list of recommendations to whoever's involved, and take whoever wants to see the places to go see them.
How many places do you recommend when you recommend to somebody?
That also varies. We
Yeah.
don't like to flood people
I
with
would
information.
think that's why I asked. I
Um,
imagine 3 would be my guess.
It really depends,
Yeah.
because sometimes there might be 5 or 6 really strong
Okay.
candidates, especially if someone has a very large coverage area. For
Okay.
example, right now we have a family that we're working with. 2 of the children live on Long Island. Nope, scratch that. 1 child lives on Long Island. 1 child lives in the city. 1 child lives in Westchester.
Oh gosh. And they'll be near any of the children.
And they want it. They're like, we don't care as long as they're near one of us.
Right.
Like, well, we're
Okay.
going to need to pare this down a bit.
Yes, yes.
And
Do the
and
kids care?
The kids care.
I mean, no. Do the kids want mom and dad near them, or they want them near the other?
They all are willing and
Okay.
able to step up and be
Oh,
the
that's
on-call
unusual.
person.
That's unusual.
It
All
is
three.
unusual. There's usually like
Yeah.
one person who
Yep.
bears the brunt,
Yep.
and then one person who handles the finances, and then one person who
Right.
does the emergency response.
And then one person takes all the credit.
Exactly. And who's not involved at all.
Correct.
So yeah, we try to narrow down the area geographically because it can get really overwhelming very, very quickly. So yeah, we don't recommend a ton of places, but it's really specific. And
Right.
sometimes we say, you know what, we're having trouble narrowing it down because some of these places, there's some nuance here that we'd like to discuss with you. So then we have a follow-up phone call
Right.
and say, we didn't recommend this place because of this one or two things, but we wanted to make sure that matters to you.
Right.
And then that might come back into play.
Right. That's very interesting. So now you've done this initial intake. You've with the family, typically not the senior
Or the person.
or
Yeah.
the person. And then you've now picking place you're recommending. So that first time you're seeing them you're doing your assessment, and then you're selecting the place. So you're meeting them at the place or places that you're touring with them. I assume usually they're in a local area. You don't usually have 3 different geographic areas. I assume that's not typical.
That's not typical.
Yeah. So, I assume in one visit you try to take them to all 3, or if
We
possible.
really honestly recommend just 2.
Okay.
It's very, very exhausting to
Okay.
tour a senior living community, which you
Yes.
probably experienced, because you're seeing more of that
Right.
building in your tour than you ever would if you live there.
Correct.
You're top to bottom, inside, outside, sitting and talking and meeting a lot of people and answering a lot of questions. So we find that after the second one,
Right.
things start to kind of blur together,
Yeah.
and you're not really getting quality intake of that information.
My father, it's like, I don't need to go here. Everyone there is old. He had to sit down and take a rest because he couldn't finish the tour. We had to wait for him to work up his energy.
Yeah.
But they're too old.
Yeah.
The other one needs a rest, Dad.
Yeah.
So
Perception matters, right?
exactly. The better he should feel good about himself.
Yeah.
But you have to have a sense of reality. Sometimes you know what's right or wrong. But putting that aside, so okay, so you're taking to a couple of places at a time. I understand that, and I assume decisions are usually made pretty quickly at that point if they're ready to make a move.
It varies. Some
Yeah.
people really get overwhelmed, like paralysis by analysis, and
Yeah.
they really struggle with making the decision, or there's not an impetus for them to do so.
Right.
So those people take a bit longer, and sometimes we visit 2 or 3 times.
Right.
We
That's
do a
interesting.
follow-up visit. And sometimes it doesn't work out, and which is fine for us. We kind of hope our clients never need us.
Right.
There are always people to take care of and help, so we're
Right.
never worried about that. But if someone can achieve their goal of, doing their research, having a community selected for the what if,
Right.
but then they end up never needing us, that's a good day too.
Right.
But the ones that do, make a decision, once they say, yes, I'd like to go to this community, then we arrange for their nurse to complete an assessment. They do take my feedback and my input of what I did, but they like to do their own, sometimes virtual with me in attendance,
Right.
or they send their own nurse to the person's home. And then there's some medical paperwork that's required by the state of New York for assisted living and memory care, but not for independent living.
Right.
Picking a room, signing a lease, moving in.
Very good. And for all of this you're doing with them, I was going to say for them, I don't want to use that term, but with them,
I like that.
is what's your fee?
So we do not take a fee directly from our clients.
Right.
Our model is if a client moves to senior living, that community pays our fee.
Right.
And the way it's structured is we do not let that influence our list of recommendations in any way. We have relationships with all of the reputable communities across our entire coverage area. We also do not let that impact what our client is charged. We are sometimes able to negotiate on their behalf for a lower rate or for some other concession or discount where possible. We know which communities kind of have more flexibility when it
They're
comes
not
to that.
full, things like that.
Yeah.
They'll be more flexible.
And the only exception to this, the fee structure, is we made a decision early on that we would not work with communities that are fully funded by Medicaid because we don't believe in accepting Medicaid dollars. I think I mentioned to you earlier the ick factor.
Right.
I think
Yes, you said that, right?
These communities that rely on Medicaid funding, I think should, every dollar that they get should go to the operation of their building and the care of their residents. So if we do get a referral for someone who is already on Medicaid and that's their path, they need to go to a Medicaid funded facility, then we have a list of reputable communities that we've heard positive things about.
Right.
And we give them the contact information. And offer resources in that
Very,
way.
very honorable. So you don't want to take that money, so therefore you don't want to do the work because you don't want to get paid, but you're going to help them by
Yep.
giving them a list of good
Yep.
places. I'm going to ask you a question. I don't know if you know the answer, but I know the answer from 30 years ago. I don't know the answer today. Are Medicaid facilities significantly different, ones that take strictly Medicaid, than non-Medicaid facilities? I'd say yes in the past. I don't know today. I've been out of touch with that.
Yes, in that the typical model for a client who is on Medicaid in an assisted living facility
Right.
community is that they would be in a shared room
Right.
with a roommate in the same space. But the same offerings are there. They provide meals,
Right.
housekeeping, laundry services, sometimes transportation, programs, activities, medication management, care
Right.
services. So they do offer
Right.
often robust services, but in a, maybe not a Ritz-Carlton setting.
Right. Right.
But some very nice places are out there.
They
And
are.
just like in private pay senior living, you have the good and the bad. And it's really knowing the people that are running the communities and the ethos of that company or that building to be able to say whether it feels good or not.
That makes sense. The fancy chandeliers are nice, but it's the ethos that counts.
Exactly.
So that's very important. You're right. And people don't know the ethos, but they see the chandelier. So they don't know till it's too late.
Yeah.
But someone like you knows, and that's where you serve. That's where your real purpose comes in. You know the stuff in the back that the people don't see. So you know how the sausage is made, so
I
to speak.
do know how the sausage is made.
So with that said, do you have any relatable stories? Any stories you can tell where you had a unique story, or I'll rephrase that, an interesting story. I'm not sure of the unique ones. That maybe someone gave you a hard time, family conflicts, things like that. I'm sure if I gave you 5 minutes, you can think of 20 of them.
Yeah.
You're thinking, which one do I tell?
Right. That's exactly.
Do I have one to tell? Yes.
So I will. This is a specific story, but with a generalized ending for a reason. Or I'll start with the generalized beginning, and then we'll tie it up with the correct ending. So people often, especially adult children, have a very fixed idea of what their parent is going to respond to, what their parent is going to hate, what they're going to love, what their parent expects, what their parent needs. No, mom is going to hate this. She cannot come here. And it's my job to gently, especially in cases of dementia clients, which we do have a large number of, to gently direct these children to say, what might have been important to your mother might not be important to her any longer, but what's missing in her life in her current setting is maybe your mom is missing feeling like she has a purpose, maybe missing feeling like she's contributing to society because she had a big job and now she's alone or with a companion or an aide all day. And maybe seeing another person with a walker is not going to be a huge turnoff for her.
Right.
And it is the job of a fantastic memory care community to distract people from those sort of invasive and intrusive thoughts. If, Susie is moving into a memory care community and she's fixated on leaving, or she's fixated on, I have to go home, I have to pack up and go home, or where's my mother? A really great memory care community is going to be able to say, you know what? Let's go pack your suitcase, but you're not leaving until tomorrow.
Right.
So let's get your suitcase ready now and let's have some dinner and then we'll go to bed early so you can get up nice and early for your trip tomorrow. And redirect that behavior and channel it into an activity that's meaningful to that person. So I had a client recently who had 2 daughters with vastly different opinions of their mother and where she was in her dementia journey. One daughter thought that her mother did not need memory care, and the other one said she absolutely needs memory care. And that's hard for me to work with because they're both decision makers. They both have power of attorney. They both have healthcare proxy. And so in the end, something ended up happening where the mother was hospitalized after wandering away from her apartment, and which is a classic need for dementia care.
Yep.
And memory care was where she ended up going. And she was like the mayor the day she moved in, which is very unusual.
Right.
Normally the adjustment is not that rosy the first few days, but they were so worried, especially the one daughter, she's going to hate it. She doesn't want to be around other old people.
Right.
She is going to be obsessed with leaving. She's going to be banging on the door. I'm like, but they're not going to let her do that. They're going to work with her and give her purpose, because you're going to tell them all about your mom and what makes her tick and what makes her happy. And she loves talking about herself. I'm like, so get them to talk about her.
Right.
Tell them all about her.
Right.
She was like the mayor.
That's funny.
And I got a text from the director of nursing that night saying, we're shocked too. I was like, well, this is great. But I think that's
very funny.
Yeah, my kind of takeaway from that for people is, don't assume anything about your parents, especially, this is my message to adult children. Don't assume anything about your parents in this new phase, because everything's on the table. Everything could change. Who your mom or dad is right now is probably not who they once were.
Right. And
so there's a reason you're talking to me. So let's go back to the reason you're talking to me. If we're having a conversation, something has happened.
Yep.
So
very well said. Very well said. Who they are today is not who they were.
Yeah.
And it's so well said. Yes, and we tend to impose, part of it is what mom used to be, and part of it is just our own feelings, which mom may never even had those feelings.
Right.
But we assume mom would have had those feelings.
Yeah.
We assume she would have had those feelings then. She may not have, and sure doesn't have the same feelings now, if she has feelings at all. This person, the feelings came out in this story.
Yeah.
And my mother-in-law went to this independent living with my father-in-law. My in-laws are now in independent living, a repeat of my parents, but a few years later. And my mother-in-law, she was the greeter. When anybody new came to the community, she was the one who greeted them. And she would almost be on the tour with them and talk to them. That's and amazing. Invite them for dinner. And she was a very social person. She's still a social person. Everybody loves her. Whenever I go there, everyone's like, oh, I love your mother-in-law. And it's kind of nice. It's a whole new chapter, like I said before. There's nothing negative about this for them. Did they give up some independence? Yeah, they gave up. I'm going to change the word independence. They gave up responsibilities, not independence. They can go to meals. They don't have to go to meals. They have a kitchen so they can cook. They don't have to cook. They've never cooked. They've made like peanut butter and jelly, but they've never. They were able to hop in the car. They had 2 cars there. Neither of them drive any longer, but it has nothing to do with being there. They're just 90 and 97. So they voluntarily stopped driving. Luckily for us, that's a battle I didn't have to have with any of my parents or in-laws. 4 of them, no battles. Thank God. Thank God. Hope I'm so responsible when I get to that time. But we'll see.
Let's both listen to these things we're saying.
That's right. That's right. And keep that in mind yourself when your daughter's involved. So it was such a positive experience. And again, you're giving up responsibilities. They don't have to worry about the law, don't have to worry about the bills, don't have to worry about all these things. It's one bill. Everything's paid for. It's one bill. It's all included. And don't have to worry about food shopping, don't have to worry about everything. And so instead of saying giving up independence, giving up responsibilities if you go to a place like that, if you're home, those responsibilities still exist unless you have an aide who's taking care of those responsibilities or your children. But responsibilities when you're home don't go away. They just get deflected.
Right.
When you go to another place, responsibilities disappear.
That's true.
Which is very interesting. So,
if I may piggyback just on
go ahead, please.
One more thing. That is a big deal, giving up, and people view this as giving up, and they are in some way. You are giving up something to move.
You're giving up space, typically.
Yeah, giving up space. You're giving up some privacy.
Okay. Yep.
You're going into communal living, which most people haven't done since college. Right. At this stage.
I love college, though.
Yeah, and so it's if you can put a positive, have a positive connotation for communal living, that's great. So there are some things that someone's giving up, or they've suffered some other loss.
Right.
That's the impetus for this move: a loss of a spouse, a loss of functionality in a body part, and having an illness, loss of mobility, loss of health. That's people mourn the loss of that. Loss of friends, loss of transportation, not being able to drive yourself from point A to point B.
That's huge on Long Island and Westchester.
That's a big deal in the suburbs for sure. So one other thing though that we talk to clients about, especially who need assisted living, where they need some care services, and they might be living at home. I like to tell people, you have a little bucket of energy that you have, and that's all the energy you have for the day.
Yeah.
And how do you want to use that bucket of energy?
I like that.
Do you want to spend an hour putting on your socks
Mhm.
and then you're exhausted and you need to take a little nap? Or do you want to have somebody pop into your apartment, put the socks on for you, then you get up and you put your lipstick on and you walk down to the dining hall and you have your breakfast with your peers and you get to go to an exercise class followed by a lecture,
That or putting on socks.
or spend an hour putting on socks, or try to clasp your bra and hurt your shoulder.
Right.
So we talk about this bucket of energy.
Right.
And if you try to look at it in that way and try to put a positive connotation on care services that you can get that are episodic, not a home care person sitting with you in your apartment for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, staring at you or in your
Right.
home, a caregiver who comes in, Mrs. Smith, I'm here to help you clasp your bra.
Right.
And then you can go to breakfast.
Right.
And that's it. And then you're off for the day.
Right.
So that bucket of energy, there's only so much.
There's only so much. I'm a visual person, and most people are visual people. And that's a fantastic visual. And especially in the way you did it, you're holding your hands like the bucket, and you can see there's all I have for the day. And when that's depleted, it's depleted. And you're right about spending it out, putting on socks. I watch older people do things that we take for granted. That becomes like an activity for the day, like putting on your socks or walking to the dining room. And that's your exercise for the day in many cases. So, we don't think about it. It's a 3-minute walk, but for them, it's a journey. So, very well said. Very well said. I normally ask, I'm going to ask it anyway, but I think you've answered it. Well, I'm going to ask two questions. One is, you've answered both of them, in my opinion, but what differentiates you from other people who do what you do, other people locate places for people to live?
First and foremost, all three of us from our company worked in senior living.
Right.
I was a nurse, as I've mentioned,
Right.
and Enza was a social worker. Paul was a sales director, but really embodies the term compassionate selling. He's never been a widget seller.
Right.
Yeah. He really looks out for people, and he's the one who came up with the ick factor rule in our company,
There you
which
go.
I love. So we all have senior living experience, and for years and years and years, not just, flash in the pan, worked as a
Right.
sales director in one community. And the fact that I am a registered nurse, Enzo was a social worker, we're not part of a franchise. And
That's
we
interesting.
really, we're not trying, like I said, we're not selling anything.
Right.
We really, and this, as
Right.
hokey as this sounds, we really just believe in doing the right thing.
Right.
And that's never come back to haunt us.
Right.
We've never had to compromise our values and ethics
Right.
to do this work, and we never want that to be the case. So we're very
Right.
happy being the three of us and maybe four of us again one day, but we're not trying to take over the world.
Right. My business, when I'm not sitting behind this microphone, which is a limited amount of time, is I buy houses, and most houses I buy are from senior citizens. But I tell everyone who calls us, we're here to help and we buy houses. In that order. We're here to help and we buy houses. And every person who hangs up the phone with us or meets us in person has to benefit in some way, shape, or form. Either they learn something and they're going to do something different, or we're going to buy their house. It's got to be, but we always say we're here to help first. And then that sounds like you share the same kind
Absolutely.
of philosophy, like the Medicaid
Yeah.
story. Oh, I'm sorry, we don't do Medicaid. People not interested. But
Good luck. No.
good luck. Yeah.
We tell
Yeah.
everyone that we meet, whether it's a professional referral source that's sending someone to us, a family member, anybody that we meet who expresses interest in talking, or that I have someone for you, we say we will have a conversation with anyone.
Right.
That takes very little because
Yep.
we have the expertise.
Yep.
For someone who doesn't, they don't know what they don't know, and they could spend hours and maybe getting misinformation.
Yep.
So if we can condense that for somebody and take 15 minutes,
Yep.
we're not the people to help you, but I probably know the person who can.
Someone called today. I happened to pick up the phone, and he has a 4-unit apartment to sell, 4-unit building in Brooklyn to sell. And I said, I'm not the right buyer for X reasons. He said, but let's talk about it. And we spent about 30 minutes talking about it. He's owned the building for 30 years. He said, no one's ever given him in 30 years, no one gave him such good advice as I did in the 30 minutes. And he was so appreciative. And in the first minute, I told him, I'm not your buyer, but let me ask you a few questions. And I had no motivation to do that except we're here to help.
Yeah.
And then to buy. And so same thing. So I like that. And I find so often people sit in your chair have the same attitude. They're dealing with seniors. It's not just a business. It has to be a calling and a passion. and almost no matter what part of the senior community you work in, no matter what capacity you work, I should say. So, and you haven't disappointed. And, and I found myself relating to all these people, which is how the whole podcast began. But if you're saying now, so we talked about your differentiator, and if you're saying there's something you want someone to take away from this discussion, I have like 18 things I can say. But if you had to pick one thing for someone to take away from this discussion, what would that be?
Don't be afraid to talk about senior living with anyone in your life
Right.
that you think needs to have the talk. It doesn't have to be tomorrow.
Right.
We're moving tomorrow. But just like you would buy insurance
Mhm.
for your home, your car, your life.
Mhm.
Maybe you bought long-term care insurance 30 years ago. You bought that with the intent to possibly use it someday. You know, the time to pick out paint colors in your brand new house is not when the house is on fire.
Right.
Why would you wait until something happens to talk about a part of life that you might have to plan
Right.
for?
Because almost everybody does.
Right. And maybe you won't. And maybe, you know, the dream, you go to bed one night and don't wake up and you're
Right.
95 years old next
Right.
to your husband or your
Right.
wife, and they die the same night, and
That's
everybody's
right.
and everybody's happy and lived
Except
a
the
nice long
kids.
life. Right. But they're happy because you lived a nice long life
That's
and you
it.
got to
Yeah.
stay at home. But the reality is something
Yeah.
could happen.
Yes.
You know, things change
Yes.
all the time
And on the fly.
on the fly.
Yeah.
So just have the conversation. There's no harm in talking about it. Take away the mystery, take away the fear, take away the misconceptions,
Yes.
address the monster,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
it's not a monster anymore.
That's correct. Very well said. Very well said. Beth, I thank you so much for coming. But before we end this, how do people get in contact with you?
We are very accessible. You can call, email, text,
Yes.
or even go through our website. We
Mhm.
actually are real humans on the other end who respond to
Right.
all
There
those
you go.
submission
No
forms.
bots, huh?
No bots. So my phone number is 646-406-2327. That's 646-406-2327. But you can also check out our website, which has all of our contact information listed, which is slcofny.com, which stands for Senior Living Consultants, the word of
Right.
ny.com.
Senior Living Consultants of NY.
Correct.
But the initials. Got it. Perfect. Again, it's a real pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Unlocking Senior Resources podcast by Leave the Key. If you've enjoyed this episode or found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast. We specialize in working with seniors who are transitioning out of their homes, and we understand what you are going through. So if you are considering selling your home and would like an alternative to the traditional overwhelming process, reach out to see how we can help. When working with us, you can sell your home in its current condition, there is no need to remove unwanted items, and you control when the house is sold, along with so many other advantages. Visit leavethekey.com or call us at 631-388-7771 to learn more about our senior home buying process.